Right, so everything is thoroughly cleaned. I've brake cleaned it, I have wiped it, I have blown it out with some air and repeated, because you can't be too clean with this sort of job. All the studs are now back in. Obviously, for most cars, you've got a longer stud on this side. This engine doesn't have one, because the coil was originally mounted down here. But there's enough threads to get onto it, so that's why that's there. And obviously the 11 stud here, that's a bolt, so I can't get that in yet, but they're all in. Obviously your gaskets, you'll always get a gasket that says top on it, so make sure that's at the top. And your front is here. So these are obviously a set way around that it goes. If I flip it round, obviously you can't read the top anymore, and the front's at that side, so here's a certain way it goes. Make sure it's nice and clean. Drop it into place. Again, making sure everything is nice and clean. I can't say it enough with this sort of job. And that's the new gasket on. Make sure that it's all marrying up with the oilways and the waterways and what have you. Which it is. We're looking good. We're looking really good. Perfect. Right, time for the head. Lower it gently, let's drop it on. Lower it gently down. There we are, cylinder head's on. Right, so next case of tap it, rockers back in, push rods back in, get the bolts on, get it tightened up. Right, when it goes down, just make sure that all of the rockers are actually touching the push rods. That way when you push it home, they should all be in the right place. It's like jammed up, is this? There we go. So like I said, just make sure that they're all seated properly on the backs, which they are. Good stuff. Studs in here and get that tightened up. Right, don't forget to put your little washer on there. Washer on top, and on top of that, and your two outer studs are the longer ones of these. That's obviously so that you can attach your rocker cover on. What we'll do is we'll just spin that down, not tight, because we need to torque these up. But now we know they're all in the right place, we can torque them after I've torqued the rest of it. Right, don't forget to install your washers. According to the Haynes manual, it tightens down to, was it 50 foot-pounds, which is 68 newton meters. So make sure you've got a torque wrench which is strong enough to do that. Right, so I've got my Haynes manual for reference, but basically you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then you go A and B, apparently. Like I say, it is set to 50 foot-pounds or 68 newton meters, and the Haynes manual says to sort of do it a quarter of a turn at a time. Now some people will do this method, which is published in the Haynes manual, and that's a quarter of a turn at a time until torqued. And some people will do it in 2 stages. That might be something like 34 foot-pounds and then up to the 50 foot-pounds. I'm obviously following the Haynes manual. You do as you wish on your car with the research that you've done. Obviously check for specs for your particular engine and engine size, because it does vary. So make sure you are doing your own research. Don't take my figures as a given. I'm using what's in my manual for my engine. One other important note to make: if you've got an 11 stud head, studs A and B, you need to vary. Now, stud B, which is the actual stud on the left hand side nearest to the heater takeoff, that is published to go between 40 and 50, like the rest of them, even though it's a smaller stud. The bolt, which you will see me do in a minute, is not. That is torqued to 25 foot-pounds. I made the mistake of following the Haynes manual for all of them and I snapped it. I basically torqued it to twice its amount. It doesn't publish that in any of my Haynes manuals, and I've got two. I've got a modern and an old one. So just make sure, like I say, you are doing your own research, because that could be quite a costly thing to get wrong, which, as I've mentioned, I did. But luckily, I could reverse that fairly quickly. Yeah. Did you all hear that? Yep, you guessed it. That was the sound of an absolute idiot torquing a 5/16 bolt to 50 foot-pounds and snapping it. Now, in hindsight, I should have realised it's a smaller bolt. It should be torqued to less. However, as I've mentioned, it doesn't mention it in my Haynes manuals. I torqued it to the specs given. It wasn't until I later did some research and found it should be 25 foot-pounds. Thankfully, in my case, it was a fairly easy thing to resolve. However, I will heed this warning to you. Please do your own research into your own specs for your engine that you're working on. Don't be an idiot like me and snap a bolt or a stud in a head and have to worry about having to try and dig it out. Thankfully, in my case, it came out easily. You might not be so lucky. So please do your own research. Right, where are we up to? Well, I've got all this talk down, as you saw, and I don't know if you heard a little bit, but I did start swearing at one point. And that is because, you probably noticed, can you see it? There's a big hole there. Snapped a stud. So this is, I believe, a 5/16 thread, 1/2 inch on the top, which is different to the rest of them. Now what I believe is they actually drilled it out to the same size as these, but they put a helicoil in it, and I don't think anyone knows why that happened or why we did it. I've no idea. But in essence, that bolt should go in there. Obviously I snapped it, and I thought, oh crap, I've torqued my head down. This was the last one to do, or second to last one to do, and I've snapped it. By some miracle, and I mean a miracle, if you look at the end of that, it didn't break flush. It sheared off at an angle. Now what that meant, I was very lucky, was that I could put that into the hole and basically catch the top of the stud, wind it out, and thankfully, because I cleaned everything, the bit came out. So you can see what I mean by that. So married it back up basically like that, and I was able to wind it out, obviously putting some pressure down onto it, and it came out. So that's a really good bit of good news. Bad news is I can't finish doing what I'm doing until I get a new one of these, because it is a specific size. I haven't got a spare one. Why would I? I'm gonna have to order one of them off eBay or Facebook or Minispace. I don't know where I'm gonna get one from, but I need to get one. So that's that. In terms of everything else, I've got most other things done. I need to change this this heater matrix hose from the inside because it's a bit short. I had to cut it basically. I've put my radiator back on, thermostat's back on, new gasket obviously there. The head's all tightened down. I can do my tappets, I can adjust them up. I'm still waiting for the manifold studs, and I'm still waiting for the heater takeoff. Aside from that, everything's getting there. Right, so next in the saga, I'm going to do the valve springs, the clearances. So the Haynes manual that I've got says that 12H engines, which this is, or any A series or A plus engine, should be 12 thousandths, and that is 0.3 millimeters in new money. I've just checked as well, the specs that I've got written down show that a 3629 valve engine is technically it's a Cooper Mark III S head. So this may well be the same spec as a Cooper S. As I've mentioned, it's not a 1275 GT, it's in between a GT and a Cooper S. Now I think this has obviously got the big valve head. You've seen the valves, and they are 3629 or 3630. Now that gives a spec of 0.15 or 15 thou clearance. So I'm a bit unsure what to do. I'm going to set it at 12, and if I need to do, I can make it a bit bigger, it's not an issue. But in essence, what you need to do, just get them so they're all touching, because obviously we've slackened them all off. So once they're all touching, you kind of know your whereabouts. And then you've got to work your way around them. So you can use a rule of 9. So when, say for example, valve 8, which is all the way over here, when that's fully open, so when that's all the way down, you adjust valve 1. And then you'd go obviously, I don't know, number 6, you'd do number 3. So you get the idea, you make up 9. Do it when your engine's cold as well, that's an important factor. As I say, I'm just going to get them so we're just touching, so that I can get a gauge of where we are with them. So now what to do is just hold on to your fan belt, try and put some pressure onto it, and turn the fan while holding onto the fan belt, and you will turn the engine over a little bit. You can also whip your spark plugs out for this, which will make it a bit easier. What I'm looking for is so I've got number 6 coming down now. So number 6 is fully down, so number 3 wants that valve clearance setting. So mark your feeler gauge in, light drag, is all you want. That's that. We'll lock that off at that. And then once you've done it, just go back and check it, because obviously they can move a little bit while you're doing this. Let's go back in there and check it. That light drag is perfect, that's what you want. So basically you just go and do that for the whole engine until you get back to a start. So remember that we started on 6 and 3. Next one will be 8, for example. So 8's just gone all the way down, so then we do number 1. Right, well, that's a weird episode filmed. As I said, that was part 3. Everything's more or less back together. I've got my new hose in there, which is a bit longer, so I can get my heater take off and run it over here to my old valve, which yes, it's scabby. I will probably clean it up a little bit, but it's a bigger diameter than the other one that was on it previously, so I'm hoping I get a bit more cooling from it in the summer, and it'll work better as well in the winter. So that's done. I've got my valve clearances done, you saw that. Everything's torqued down apart from this one just here. I have rang A-Speed down at Shipley. He has got a YouTube channel, link in the description. I've rang him to see if he's got one. He's normally really good with stuff like that. He'll have a look for me and let me know. If he done, then he done. It's just, it's a few more days wait to get it sorted out, but there we go. I've also put in my little bracket there. There should be 2 of these, I've only got one. So I've cleaned that up, put that on. Everything's buttoned up now, ready to go. I'm literally waiting for the heater takeoff and the manifold studs, which should be here tomorrow. Hopefully I can get that sorted out. That's arrived, and so is that, so I can get my heater valve on and my hose. My new exhaust studs have arrived. I've gone for the brass nuts because brass won't corrode. And if you watched part 3, you'll know that I snapped a bolt, and it was the 11th stud. The reason being is because, and it's frustrating because the Haynes manual, I've got the new version and the old version, and neither of them say what the torque should be for the 11th stud. So that's the one there. I think it's a 5/16. So I've got my thread gauge, 5/16, fixing that all just there. The 1/2 inch head. That one, nearest your thermostat, goes to £25 foot. So don't do it to 50 like I did, because you will snap it. Like I said, there's no mention in the Haynes manual, so I took that as gospel, but I've done some research, and yeah, that's £25 foot. So I've got a new bolt, courtesy of A-Speed, which is called Andy. It's a Shipley garage, a garage in Shipley. He does YouTube as well, so go and check him out. He's also doing Mike Brewer's car, so you might see that as a feature on his channel at some point, I would imagine. Obviously Mike Brewer, wheel dealers. So I'll put a link down below for his channel. Go and check him out, give him a subscribe. His videos are really good, to be fair. So yeah, I've got a new boat. It's £25 foot. Now this goes into the water jacket. It's straight down into it, and what I've been told, I've advised to do is put a tiny bit of Hylamar blue or RTV sealant, that sort of thing, around sort of the bottom of the thread, just to help stop any water from trying to come back up. Don't use thread lock. Worst thing you can do on a head stud is use thread lock, because you'll never get it back out and it will snap. But a little smear of Hylamar blue will just help them threads seal. So I've been advised to do that. I don't know if it needs it exactly, but that's what I've been advised to do. So I'm going to get all that fitted, and then I can take it for a spin. The first thing I'm going to do is, once everything's all done, I'm going to run it to temperature with no coolant in it, get it nice and hot, well not hot, but get it warm, re-torque the head, and by that I'm not saying I'm going to loosen it all off, but I'm going to just basically check they're all still tight. Some might say it's the wrong way to do it, some might say it's the right way to do it. I'm doing this as a sort of how I'm doing it, and if it works, it works. There's loads of different ways you can do head gaskets. I'm not saying this is gospel or this is right, but this is where I'm doing it. And I have good authority of different people. This is kind of the best way. So get it nice and hot, let it cool down, make sure you let it cool down, check they're all still tight, put some coolant in it, run it up to temperature again, take it for a short drive, and then again, try and torque them down again, make sure they're all clamped. One thing I will say is that the older A-series style studs are a coarse thread going into the block, and they are supposed to be tightened, I think, to £42 foot, not 50 like I've done, because you can actually pull the thread out of the block. Big bad doo-doo if that happens, you're going to be helicoiling and all sorts. Again, the Haynes manual makes no reference to that, it just blankets everything with £50 foot of torque, so that's what I've done. Now, what I'm saying this is to warn you, if you're doing this on your Mini or any car, check your own specs and do your own research on your own engine before you do anything. I'm not going to loosen them back off and put them to 42, that'd be madness. Why would I loosen off a bolt that's already torqued up? It's just going to uncompress that gasket. So they're staying at that. I've had a good authority off people as well that it will be fine. There'll be no issues at all. And like I say, they've tightened up, so they're not going to come loose, I wouldn't have thought. But just like I say, make sure that you are checking and researching your own car, because I have made the mistake of blanketing this thing with the Haynes, thinking it was all the same. And probably the wrong thing to do, probably should have researched it myself, but you'd imagine that the Haynes is right. Anyway, I'm going to get these things fitted. Very simple job. The only thing I'll mention is, I don't think I'm using them studs. I think I'm using the bolts that came out, because I think they've been drilled and retapped to M6. Because like I say, it's a 10mm spanner to get them off, but I will check them. Hylamar blue on the gasket, because the face on there isn't completely flat. There's a bit of a bow in it, but it's sort of bowing that way. So when I tighten the bolts down, it will sort of pull them down and make a good surface. Aside from that, nothing else to say. Alright, so as I've mentioned, a little bit of Hylamar blue. And that's all I'm putting on. I'll give it a bit of a smear around. Honestly, I don't know if that's totally necessary, but that's what I've been advised to do. And you can see there's not much on there at all. And it's not a thread lock. It doesn't actually set. Doesn't Hylamar blue. It kind of just stays gooey. So anyway, let's have another go at tightening this bolt up to the right spec. And yeah, job's a good one. Right, the next job is to fit this. So I've put some Hylamar blue on both sides, just a very thin smear on the bit that's going to actually seal it. Pop that down there. Get me plate in there like that. As I've mentioned, I'm going to use the old box because I think that's been retapped to 2M10, and these are stainless as well actually. The reason I know it's stainless is because it's got stamped 8.8 into it. So we'll wind them in. Don't go mad with these because you don't want to snap them, but you do want them to be tight as well, so we'll do that by feel. There we are. As I say, I'm not going to go too mad. If it does leak a little bit when I've got it running, I can snip them down a bit more, but they're as tight as I want to go without going mad. That's that job done. Next job, I think I want to fit the exhaust manifold and inlet manifold back on. I'm not going to film that bit because, well, it's just simple. Double up the studs and wind them in, and then fit it all up. Don't forget your gasket. So yeah, I'll join you back when that's been done. Right, so obviously I've changed this old valve now. Well, this is my old valve off this engine, and this is the one off my actual car when I changed the engine. I did think that looks, I still do think it looks nice. It looks cleaner, but this is, like I say, it's the old stock version, if you like. The new stock version is completely different on the front and the leak a lot from here. So that's one reason I'm changing it, is because the valve's just a bit stiff and it doesn't always stay in the on position. The main reason though is, I don't know if you can see it, let me get my torch so you can see better. If you look at that, I mean, it's not gummed up or anything too badly, but it's quite a small hole. Well, if you compare it to that one, there's quite a big bit of difference there. In fact, that one almost will fit inside that one. So it looks a lot nastier, I think, in my opinion, but as I say, the hole's bigger, so I should get some more flow through to my heat matrix. And plus, when I put this valve on, when I put this engine in, these hoses don't actually fit. So my original hoses don't fit on this, whereas on the other one they're quite snug, so I had to route it through the manifold with some adaptation pieces to get it up onto here, which I wasn't really happy with. I don't need to run it through my manifold because I don't drive it in that colder condition. So that's junk now, and I'm going to fit this one on, which is, like I say, it's my old one. I've cleaned it up as much as I want to do, really. But yeah, lots better really for flow and stuff, and you can see that valve works nicely there as well. So simple thing, Jubilee clip on either end of your hose, wriggle that in there, wiggle that bit on there. Jubilee clip on either side, and that basically feeds onto there, and where is it? Onto there. So just make sure you pull it all the way back, clip it in. Ooh. Clip it in. There we are. And that's secured now. Easy as that. So just take my Jubilee clips up and that's done now. It will be fixed here obviously, so that'll kind of keep it steady, but there's not much else I can do with that. It's going to flop around a little bit. It is what it is. Right, well, I've checked everything. These are all tight. Not that there's any coolant in it at the minute, but nevertheless they're all tight, so it's ready to put some coolant in. I'm going to run it for a minute. I've just made sure my temperature sender's plugged back in so I can watch the temperature rise up. Should get there pretty quick, but I am going to wait outside the garage because obviously I'm running the engine without anything in it. There's no cat or anything like that, so you can obviously inhale exhaust fumes. So just keep nipping in now and again, checking it, keep your garage door open. Like I said, it's only for a minute or so, but it will get quite smoky. Everything's connected up, we're all ready to go. Just make sure my dashport's got some oil in it, because obviously I've been moving that around and some of it could have tipped out, so checked that, checked my fuel lines are all okay, so obviously again we've moved it all. Breather hose is on. I've left that off for now because I'm going to have to go back in there and it's a bit of a pain. What's left to say? Let's give it a start. For some reason the revs went straight up, so I'm just going to check my linkages are all okay, which they are. Take two. So as I've mentioned, the reason for starting it with no coolant in it is purely to get the engine temperature to melt the lacquer, and we can just check the tightness of all them bolts. Once that's done, when it's obviously cooled down, we'll check it, and then we'll put some coolant in it, put it up, get it to temperature again, and just double check them again after it dries. You can see it's smoking a bit, that's all the oil off my hands, touching all the exhaust, just water it out as well. Aside from that, let's let it get warm and I'll join you in a second. Right, that's nice and warm to a touch. Next job, go and get a cup of tea, tidy up, let that cool down and check all the torque, and then we'll put some coolant in it and take it for a spin. I'm not going to show you all that bit because what's the point? The next bit you'll see is me driving it. Right, well, so we're in the Mini, we're driving it. So far everything seems great, the heating is a lot better. Let me tell you that, it's toasty in here. Yeah, that's a massive improvement. Big result on that one. So yeah, it's running great, it's running fine. I'll get some driving shots, but it is raining so it's hard to see out the windscreen. Big question, did we fix the oil burning issue? Not too sure. I am still getting smoke in roughly around the same place where I was before, so it's when I boot it and I'm going sort of upwards of 3,500 to 4,000 revs. So I might have fixed it, however there's a few factors in that. One, there might still be some oil in the system, in sort of the exhaust, which is still getting burnt off. Two, when I put my oil in the dashpot, I did fill it a bit too much, so it might be a little bit, you know, spilled over and going to the manifold and it's got to work its way out. So I don't know, it's running a lot nicer, it does seem to be smoother. I've no idea why, because it didn't fail in the first place, but it is running a bit smoother. Much the same in all other aspects though. I don't know what else to say really, it's working. Bit of oil at the back of it, but do you know what, if it's not fixed it, I've made some videos out of it, it's cost me next to nothing. And I know at least, you know, where I stand with the top end of the engine. I know I've got to put focus to the bottom end. I was talking to Paul Jeffries, we weren't sure if it was maybe the breathers are blocked. However, I did blow down with a tube, and blowing down them, it's very clear. And I won't sort of, I was just putting some, like a bit of a soft blow into them. So I don't think they are blocked. It's going to be something to do with a piston ring if it's not cured it. But that can wait until I've got some money for that and I can get round to doing it. So yeah, I'll just put some driving shots at the back end of this. It's been a four-parter. I know they've been a bit long and dreary, some of these videos. It's been a bit up and down with it myself. But if you have liked it and if you do want to see more, please do consider subscribing. As I've mentioned in previous videos, I'm going to put adverts on the channel. Anything that I do get revenue wise will go towards a gift for somebody out there that watches the videos. you don't get that much money out of YouTube if you're small time like me. So I might as well give a bit back. So yeah, if you have enjoyed it, please put a comment down below. Let me know if you've done something differently. Let me know if you've got thoughts on it. Give it a like if you felt like it was worthy of a like. If you're going to give it a dislike, at least tell me why you're going to dislike it. We can all dislike videos, can't we? Let's just give good feedback. And please, if you've not already, please subscribe to the channel. There's all sorts of videos like this, and I do. So yeah, get subscribing, and I'll see you on the next one.